Cheers, guys. Epix911, welcome to the Elitist Geek. This episode I want to talk about Radio Shack. Radio Shack is a store that used to exist all across North America, in the US and in Canada. I'd say it was roughly 8 years ago now that the Canadian portion of Radio Shack became the Source. Pretty much the same thing, different name. You know, you talk to Source people and they argue it's different, but really, anybody coming from the US, if you were to put them in a Source store, blindfolded so they don't see the sign on the entryway, took the blindfold off and asked them what store they were in, I can pretty much guarantee you 99 times out of 100 they'd say, we're in Radio Shack. Radio Shack in Canada, in the US, is going bankrupt, and the Canadian store, the Source, isn't doing much better. The store had a niche at one time. I remember in the early 1980s, they actually had their own name brand PC that they sold called the Tandy, and the TRS-80, affectionately known by computer guys like myself as the Trash 80, was also sold at Radio Shack. Radio Shack was the store for most people in the 80s that introduced them to computers. Sure, there were other computer stores, but it was really Radio Shack that got the whole demo the computer with the game and the media to actually be a thing. You know, Sears flirted with that with the Commodore 64 a bit later, but Radio Shack was doing that for a while. Radio Shack also, was a quasi-electronic store. It was the kind of place where you could buy little circuits, circuit boards. You could, buy buttons, switches, RC remote-controlled toys. So it kind of had a niche for itself. Fast forward into the 1990s, Tandy was no longer a brand. It didn't exist anymore. They started carrying PC clones, and like I said, the Canadian Radio Shack became the Source. So really, what's left? Well, the niche that they once occupied is now pretty much online. All those little switches and things, people will order off on Amazon, or they'll go to an electronic specialty store where they can get the same things much cheaper. So really, the need, the desire for a store like Radio Shack in this day and age just really doesn't exist anymore. There was a store like it called Minitronics that I used to go to in a shopping mall in our neighborhood. Almost purely computers and consoles, and even that design, that kind of business model just couldn't last. And I'm noticing the same thing happen with stores like Electronics Boutique, which is I think similar to the Radio Shack thing in Canada. EB in the US became GameStop, if I'm quoting that history correctly. And here in Canada, I know EB, you'll have a brand new game for $69, and then a used game they will sell for $64.99, $5 cheaper, which is nothing. And they wonder why they're struggling. Whereas we have another store, it's a mom and pop shop, it's called Willow Video. They specialize in just movies, consoles, and that's it. And their used games are often half the price of new, which makes it a hell of a good deal compared to going to a place like Electronics Boutique or GameStop. So, back to Radio Shack, am I going to miss the store? Not really. It's the kind of store, like I said, all the parts of which you can purchase through Amazon or electronic specialty stores. So, not really going to miss it. But still, it's a few thousand stores, a few thousand jobs, so it's worth mentioning. This year is going to be a fantastic year for the 3DS RPG. You guys know I was really disappointed with 2014 because 2013 was such a good year. 2015 is going to be another good year, I think, for the 3DS and hopefully the Vita as well in terms of RPGs. We have several awesome games coming out that I'm looking forward to. The first of which is Etrian Mystery Dungeon, which looks to be a cross between Etrian Odyssey, roguelike, and the roguelike features of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game. There's also a remake of Etrian 2 coming out, which, like the remake of 1 on the 3DS, should be fantastic. I love that remake on the 3DS, just a fantastic game. We've also got Monster Hunter 4 coming out, as well as, of course, the new 3DS, which I mentioned in another video, but I think it bears repeating. And if I can find it here, is the new 3DS is going to have that little analog nub, which I think is going to come in really handy. Here's what I was using before. This is the Circle Pad Pro for the 3DS XL, and I love the the full analog nub that it has on the right. And you'll notice that there's a couple of new shoulder buttons. There's a ZL and a ZR. So is this still going to be useful? Probably. What I'm going to do is I'm going to probably buy the new 3DS, and then I'll put my old 3DS on this, because what you're gonna see likely is the games that come out for the new 3DS are still going to be compatible with the Circle Pad Pro, because those buttons are probably programmed, the exact same way, as well as the analog is going to basically be that nub. So I'll probably buy the new 3DS and then put my old one on this almost permanently, because for some games I have a feeling that the old analog nub is still going to feel a little bit better. So really looking forward to that. What games are you guys looking forward to? Let me know in the comments below. I should have another video up tomorrow, continuing my historical 3D, the Rise of 3D Games series, finally. As always, guys, till next video, cheers.